Hey y'all, welcome back to Love Letters with Leah, your weekly dose of affectionate connection on the one and only Mike and Juju Smoke Room. I am, of course, your friend and your host, Leah. Media has changed the world's perspective on clothing. When did it become okay for our little girls to dress like grown adult women? Here's a letter from a man whose wife is allowing this.
Dear Leah, I'm writing because I desperately need advice about a situation that's tearing my family apart. My wife and I are constantly in conflict over our 12-year-old daughter's clothing, to the point where we're having screaming matches in public. My daughter is starting to develop physically, and my wife has been buying her increasingly mature clothing. Crop tops, short shorts, tight leggings, and outfits that I feel are more appropriate for teenagers or young adults. When I express my concern, my wife says I'm just being old-fashioned or body-shaming our daughter. I want to be perfectly clear. This is not about controlling my daughter or making her feel ashamed of her body. I'm concerned about age appropriateness and the message we're sending. She's still a child, and some of her outfits make her look way much older than she really is. I worry about unwanted attention from adults and the pressure to grow up too fast. The real problem is how my wife handles our disagreements. Last week at the mall, my daughter wanted a halter top that barely covered anything. When I quietly suggested that it might be inappropriate for a 12-year-old to wear, my wife exploded in front of other shoppers, calling me controlling and prehistoric. She bought the top anyways and stormed out with our daughter, leaving me standing there humiliated. This pattern happens constantly. At family gatherings, school events, even at the grocery store. Anytime I try to discuss our daughter's clothing, my wife turns it into a public argument. She makes me look like the unreasonable parent, while positioning herself as the cool mom who supports our daughter's self-expression. Our daughter is caught in the middle and clearly feels uncomfortable when we fight. Sometimes she even asks if she can change clothes before we go out, which breaks my heart because I think she senses the tension even when we try to hide it. I've tried talking to my wife privately about finding middle ground. Maybe clothes that are trendy but still age appropriate, but she shuts me down almost immediately. She says I need to get with the times and stop trying to police women's bodies. I feel like she's twisting my concerns into something that they're not. I'm not trying to make my daughter dress like a nun or anything. Not trying to shame her for growing up. I just think there's a difference between being supportive of her development and letting her dress like she's 16 when she's barely even 12. Some of her outfits are getting comments from other parents, and they're not positive. The public fights are what's really destroying us. I feel like I cannot express any parental concern without being humiliated in front of my friends, my family, or even complete strangers. My wife seems to enjoy making me look like the villain, and I'm starting to resent her for this. How do I handle this? Is there a way to have reasonable boundaries about age-appropriate clothing without being labeled as controlling or old-fashioned? And more importantly, how do I get my wife to stop turning every disagreement into a public spectacle? I love my family. I'm exhausted from walking on eggshells and being made to feel like I'm a terrible father for having concern about my daughter's welfare. Please help. Tired of being the bad guy.
Well, you're dealing with two separate but equally serious issues here. A parenting disagreement about age, appropriate boundaries, and a spouse who's weaponizing public humiliation to shut down reasonable discussions. Allow me to address both of these, okay? First off, your concerns about age-appropriate clothing for a 12-year-old, they're completely valid. There's nothing old-fashioned or body-shaming about wanting your preteen daughter to dress like a preteen. The goal is not to make children ashamed of their developing bodies, but to help them navigate growing up at a healthy pace with appropriate boundaries. Your wife's approach, that's problematic on many levels. By framing every boundary as body policing, she's actually doing your daughter a disservice. Part of parenting is helping children understand context-appropriate choices. What's suitable for the beach is not suitable for school. And what's appropriate for a teenager, it's not necessarily appropriate for a 12-year-old. But the bigger red flag here is your wife's pattern of public confrontation, turning private parenting disagreements into public spectacles. That is just disrespectful to you, and it's harmful to your daughter. Children need to see that their parents are a united team, even when they disagree, behind closed doors. Your daughter is learning that it's acceptable to humiliate your partner when you don't get your way. Here's what needs to happen. You need to set firm boundaries about public fights. Tell your wife that parenting disagreements will be discussed privately. Period. No questions asked. If she starts an argument in public, calmly say, "We'll discuss this at home," and remove yourself from the situation as quickly as possible. Suggest counseling, family counseling. Frame it around better communication for your daughter's sake, not criticism of her parenting. A neutral third party can help you establish healthy conflict resolution. Document the patterns. Keep notes about these public confrontations. If this marriage deteriorates further, you'll want this evidence of her behavior. Talk to your daughter separately. Age appropriately. Explain that parents sometimes disagree, but still love her and will be there for her. Make sure she knows that the fights are not her fault. Stand your ground on these reasonable boundaries. You have equal say in parenting decisions. Don't let yourself be bullied into something that you're not comfortable with just because you're afraid of the conflict. Your wife, she may be struggling with her own issues around your daughter growing up. A power play in your marriage, this is what she's using to combat that fear. Either way, the current dynamic, it's not sustainable and it's harmful to everyone involved. You're not the bad guy for wanting age-appropriate boundaries. You're being a responsible parent in a difficult situation. Remember that. Always remember, even though you're portrayed as a bad guy, it's for a good reason, and don't give up. I'm wishing you strength, courage, and love. And everyone else out there, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. Remember to keep the faith glowing, the love letters flowing, and always cherish the love that you're showing. This is Love Letters with Leah, your weekly dose of affectionate connection. Remember to spread the love by hitting the like and the subscribe buttons and the notification bell. Smash on that bell. That way you know when we go live or put out new content. And check our main page for new merchandise. And we'll see you next week for your next Love Infusion.